The gentleman from Texas, Mr. Paul, is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask unanimous consent to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection.
Last week it was Saddam Hussein and the Iraqis. This week's Hitler is Slobodan Milosevic and the Serbs. Next week, who knows? Kim Jong-il and the North Koreans. Next year, who will it be? The Ayatollah and the Iranians. Every week we must find a foreign infidel to slay and, of course, keep the military-industrial complex humming. Once our ally, Saddam Hussein, with encouragement from us, invaded Iran, was it not logical that he might believe we condone border crossings and invasions, even into what Iraqis believe is rightfully theirs, Kuwait, especially after getting tacit approval from U.S. Ambassador Glaspie? Last week, U.S. Special Envoy to the Balkans, Robert Gelbard, while visiting Belgrade, praised Milosevic for his cooperation in Bosnia and called the separatists in Kosovo, quote, without question, a terrorist group, close quote. So how should we expect a national government to treat its terrorists? Likewise, our Secretary of State in 1991 gave a signal to Milosevic by saying all Yugoslavia should remain a monolithic state. What followed was to be expected: Serb oppression of the Croats and the Muslims. All our wise counsel, so freely given to so many in this region, fails to recognize that the country of Yugoslavia was an artificial country created by the Soviet masters, just as the borders of most Middle Eastern countries were concocted by the British and UN resolutions. The centuries-old ethnic rivalries inherent in this region and aggravated by persistent Western influence as far back as the Crusades will never be resolved by arbitrary threats and use of force from the United States or the United Nations. All that is being accomplished is to further alienate the factions festering hate and pushing the region into a war of which we need no part. Planning any military involvement in Kosovo is senseless. Our security is not threatened, and no one has the foggiest notion of whether Kofi Annan or Bill Clinton is in charge of our foreign policy. The two certainly do not speak in unison on Iraq, but we cannot maintain two loyalties, one to a world government under the United Nations and the other to U.S. sovereignty protected by an American Congress. If we try, only chaos can result, and we're moving rapidly in that direction. Instead of bringing our troops home from Bosnia, as many members of Congress have expressed an interest in doing, over the President's objection, we're rapidly preparing for sending more troops into Kosovo. This obsession with worldwide military occupation by U.S. troops is occurring at the very time our troops lack adequate training and preparation. This is not a result of too little money, but a misdirected role for our military, a role that contradicts a policy of neutrality, friendship, trade, and non-intervention in the affairs of other nations. The question we should ask is, are we entitled to, wealthy enough, or even wise enough to assume the role of world policeman and protector of the world's natural resources? Under the Constitution, there is no such authority. Under the rules of morality, we have no authority to force others to behave as we believe they should and force American citizens to pay for it, not only with dollars, but with life and limb as well. And by the rules of common sense, the role of world policeman is a dangerous game and not worth playing. Acting as an honest broker, the U.S. may help bring warring factions to the peace table, but never with threats of war or bribes paid for by the American taxpayer. We should stop sending money and weapons to all factions. Too often our support finds its way into the hands of both warring factions, and we never know how long it will be for our friends and ally of today to become our enemy and target of tomorrow. Concern for American security is a proper and necessary function of the U.S. Congress. Current policy, and one pursued for decades, threatens our security, drains our wallets, and worst of all, threatens the lives of young Americans willing to stand tall for Americans' defense, but not for Kofi Annan's United Nations. And I yield back the balance of my time.